Okay, it's 3:01. Let's begin the Urban Design Commission. Please silence your cell phones while I call roll. George McChristian here. Jeff Struble.
Here.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Here.
Brian Fitzsimmons. Here. Matt Guillory. Long Nguyen. John Robison. Here. Okay, we have quorum. Item 2 is approval of the minutes, and we have 2 minutes to approve today. As you will recall, the November 19 minutes had some red lines still in them when they were submitted. So I don't know if you've had a chance to look and have any objections, but if there are no objections, I would entertain a motion on both sets of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion by Brunstetter, second by Fitzsimmons. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. The next item requiring attention, 6 cases for individual consideration, 607 Northwest 7th Street. Michael?
Yeah, this application is for a new single-family residence on an existing vacant lot on the north side of Northwest 7th, just west of Dewey. The application is pretty straightforward, and we've detailed in the staff report how the proposal complies with a variety of the development standards and guidelines. However, there are 2 areas that we've highlighted in the staff report where the project does not meet the applicable standards. And the first being that there is a minimum height requirement in this district of 2 stories and 30 feet. And you may remember that this came up recently on the Randy Floyd residence, which is directly across the street. And we've kind of analyzed that, and due to the fact that it's a contemporary design and there are several houses existing in the district that are built at 1 story and were historically built at 1 story, staff feels that we can make the findings and recommend approval of that variance request and suggest that the Commission make that recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. Second issue is the fencing. The proposed fence is a horizontally mounted ribbed steel panel fence. And as we've detailed for you in the staff report, there are some issues with that. I want to apologize. The reference that's provided in the staff report, bottom page 3, is more of a generic general fencing standard. And it really is kind of rendered moot by the reference at the top of page 4 of your staff report, because that is the one that controls in the DTD district and the DTD 1. And in that requirement, it does talk about the fact that these fences cannot be made of the metal that's being proposed here. So there's a variance required to approve that proposed material as well. I did want to point out that I think late Monday that you probably received some information, some supplemental information from the applicant that he has proposed an alternative design. Then it's also, there on your dais in hard copy form, that proposes to you an alternative that, should the variance request that he intends to pursue not pass, that he would be able to go ahead and proceed and build this alternative fence that is made out of wood. And we've reviewed that material and found that it's acceptable. The height is correct, and so on and so forth. So we would be recommending approval of that. So in summary, the staff recommendation would be that we're recommending approval of the project. I did want to point out on the last page of the staff report, there should have been a number 2 recommendation after number 1, and that would be to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for the variance on the minimum building height. And that was inadvertently omitted from the staff report when it went out in the packet. And then the number 2 that's in the staff recommendation should have been number 3, and that is to provide a recommendation of denial to the Board of Adjustment for the variance on the proposed metal fence material. That completes our staff report. We're prepared to respond to any questions the commission may have.
Does anyone on the Commission have any questions for Michael right now? Did the applicant want to speak? Please.
I'm Bill Bleakley, co-applicant with my co-applicant Linda Mioli. We're excited to be here and looking forward to building a house in the Cottage District. Why don't we say I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And as Mike said, we'd appreciate if we could go to the Board of Adjustments with the metal fence, and if it does not prevail at the Board of Adjustment, we fall back on the wooden fence alternative. And again, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, terrific. Does anyone have any questions for Bill right now? I would make, this is not about the meat of this case, but I would make just a small observation that you and your architect look at, and it's minor, but I'll point it out. And that is your privacy wall in front that are in front of your trash cans.
Right.
It's 3 feet 6 inches, I think, according to your plans. One reason I noticed this is I have a 3 foot 6 inch privacy wall
and a blue
for my trash can. Yeah, and they stick up a good 4 inches above that. So given the location of yours, you may want to take a look at it.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. I thought I did some kind of a shoulder measurement on my Big Blue, that we were trying to match up the sill on the front windows, but we will certainly look at the height issue on that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Sure. Okay. Did anyone have any questions about any of these variance issues or comments or point of view they want to express?
Just help me understand the fence location a little bit. There's a small fence that's around the southeast corner. That's masonry, correct?
I'm sorry.
There's a small fence that's on the southeast corner?
Yes.
Right.
And that's masonry, and then it's the same height proposed all the way around?
That front
Okay.
porch, yes.
It's a 6 foot 6 fence on the side yard and in the rear.
Right.
So the only variance relative to the fence material?
Is the
Right.
material.
It's not height.
And would you be interested in me speaking to our interest in the metal fence?
Sure. Please.
First of all, we think it looks cool, and we've shown you some pictures where we saw the inspiration for it. But behind that fence is our small swimming pool and my raised bed garden that I will be spending a lot of time in. So we were looking at all the issues of first issue is durability. We are hoping to build a house that will function for us without repairs as long as we are in it, and the metal will be more durable than putting in a wood fence. And a second factor is air circulation, and the construction of that decking on the middle post is real cool because it provides a whole system of vents both ways. In addition, the middle could be perforated, as we show you in the example. With the wood slat, to get circulation in the thing, you have to raise the gap. And this fence is only along our neighbor's house to be and along the alley. And we're not worried about our neighbor, but that gives us some privacy along the alley if we have sort of a site-proof fence that comes into the outdoor living area and into the windows into the house. So all those factors, this fence in the general fence inventory is permitted, except I think there was a half-inch variance on one dimension of it from the material we were proposing and that. But we think it fits into the Cottage District, where everybody's building, I think, some great-looking houses, and I think it would be a good thing to have some alternatives for doing some different fence designs. This material exists on the side of some of the houses in the Cottage District already. The Galvalume is an incredibly durable surface on this. It's not going to be rusting. The Galvalume is the same thing we, on our first rendition or application, was on the standing seam roof. So we think it'd be a great complement to the house and would appreciate trying to get a variance on it.
So your preference is perforated metal or solid metal?
I think it's going to be a cost factor. I think it works real well solid. I think the perforations are real cool too. But again, I'm not sure what the process is, but it's got to be expensive, so I think it would end up solid. In the photographic sample,
Hi, I'm Linda Miele. It's, our envisionment is a combination of most of them on one panel being solid, and then on the second panel being solid on the bottom and perforated. I mean, it's the same design panel. It's just one of them would be perforated and the other two would be solid.
and I think one of those
Like
photographs.
the examples that you gave us, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I only asked about the perforation. The wood fence would be more private than a perforated fence. If that's,
Those holes are very tiny.
but when they're in mass, you can see through it.
Put them up to your eyeball, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And that's
Use
why.
it as a pinhole camera.
And that's why it was going to be a combination of solid panels and then one perforated and then three solid and then some perforated. But the air circulation also comes from the way the panels are put into the ground, with one being here and then the alternative ones being 6 or 7 inches behind it. So the air comes through those panels as well. Am I making sense?
And we could do the solid on the alley side, and where we are interested in more air circulation around the pool area and such, we could perhaps use some perforation.
You're staggering on either side of the pole.
Right. And that's what, and with the decking, all the holes in the decking provide a vent at the pole, but, you know, with sufficient overlap, you're not going to be able to see through the fence.
I just have a question for staff and for the commission. The type of fence isn't permitted, but we're recommending that we do it. Is that the deal?
No, the type of, well, the material proposed is not permitted.
Right.
So a variance was required, and
So we're going to go for a variance.
we're not recommending that the commission approve the variance,
Okay, but there is a,
Unless you want to.
unless you want to.
well, I don't have a problem with the fence, but I do want to see the ordinances. I'd like to see a little cleaner ordinance that allows or doesn't allow and don't have to have variances that often. And that's kind of what I'm concerned about.
We're just kind of wrapping up the
I know you are.
updates to the Bricktown guidelines, so we'll be able to turn our attention to all the other ones that you...
Well,
that you
and I know you've been talking about this in the Cottage District, and I just wonder if this is likely to be something that gets fixed, or if not fixed, you know, but I wouldn't want to, I really don't want to have a record of a bunch of, you know, a trail of variances, particularly on fencing and that sort of thing, or materials.
Well,
I have the same question about the two-story versus the one-story.
yeah, we're already,
that's what's really-
and we described in the staff report that that's an issue that in talking with the representatives and property owners in the Cottage District last year through a survey that we conducted with them, that that's one clear provision that needs to be rectified, and we do intend to exempt the Cottage District from that standard in our update.
Do you have a similar feeling about the fences?
This, Michael, we haven't, nobody's asked to not comply with that before in your tenure here, right?
I'm sorry?
The fence, nobody's
No,
asked.
nobody's-
Nobody
this is the
has
first-
asked for a variance, so.
No, but I'm just saying, here we are, starting the first in a series that, you know, we've done the same thing.
Well, and
occasionally.
that's one reason we're recommending denial, because for this project to use the consistent fence is more consistent with all of the other approvals. And we couldn't find one, and we're trying to get better about, you know, not just blanket recommending variances because the applicant wants it, but one of the reasons is for hardship. That's one of the criteria the Board of Adjustment is supposed to weigh. Style and desire, that's one thing. Hardship is another.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that issue? As we all know from our experience, the Cottage District is an anomaly in all this stuff, and I think it's evolving into functionally a design district. And my solution to this is not a trail of variances, but give more discretion to this commission. If you look at most of these fence ordinances, I think they were written in 1930 or 1940 or something. Wood picket, some of that is in use, but I think for a district like this, people building these houses are really limited on their fencing choices now, and I think there's an opportunity for doing some creative thing, and it can't be wide open, but I think the parameters ought to be looser and more discretion for you guys to let people bring forth stuff, and if you think it looks cool, go with it, than to try to fit what's going on in this district into these fence ordinances. That hopefully, and we're just asking for a chance to run it by. Ms. Cronister is right. We have to prove a hardship, so we've got a big case before the Board of Judgment. All I'm asking for is for us to have a chance to make a run at it. If it doesn't go, we'll go back to the wood fence.
Okay, my understanding of why it was written to start out with as far as the metal fencing was concerned was the durability factor. We've seen a lot of people that have used aluminum just to fence off outdoor storage or whatever. And Brian, kind of started a trend in the Cottage District as far as using architectural metal. I think we've now approved architectural metal for the, and even though I don't particularly like the metal fence for myself,
Understood.
I think it's a durable material, and because it is an architectural metal. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, do you have an opinion on that?
And the irony is this material is on sides of houses in cottage districts, and we're talking about.
So it's not going to be beat up by hail any more than some of the houses would be beat up by hail.
And I guess the curiosity within the zoning ordinance is, now that it's the case, you're required to screen dumpsters and things like that, and the screening material for dumpsters, this would be allowed, and or material consistent with the building, in which case architectural is allowed. The actual fence that has nothing to do with the dumpster would have to be a different material than that if this were commercial, for example. So that's not this particular case that applied, but that will inevitably happen at some time where they would want to build a fence that would be consistent with the dumpster enclosure, for example.
So what would have happened with Brian's house, who I think we all admire that building, is that we would have recommended denial to the Board of Adjustment for his metal on his house. So I don't really think that's, I'm glad that we didn't do that.
I think this is a little bit tangential, but I think there are inconsistencies in the code, especially how they hook up to DTD1 in the Cottage District. Just at the recent Planning Commission, Lisbon Lofts had to get a variance for platting because of the site triangle. Well, the DTD1 regulations don't require a site triangle or allow it to be waived in certain cases, but the platting hasn't been rewritten to dovetail properly with the downtown zoning, so they had to get a variance. And I suspect the same thing might be going on here with the fence ordinances, in that, as has been pointed out by a number of people, you can have architectural metal on a building or an dumpster enclosure, but you can't have it on a fence the way it's written. So that for what it's worth, that there does seem to be an inconsistency. The way I actually am in favor of the metal fence, and I think that I actually am also in favor of asking for a variance, and here's the reason. That the way this house is designed, and one of the things I like about it is designed to be low maintenance, which I think adds sustainability, adds to aging in place. You have brick, you have the Hardie panels with the Color Plus, which has a warranty on like 15 years or something. If you want wood and you want it to be low maintenance, you've got to go with Ipe, which is what you pick, because otherwise you're constantly having to treat it every several years. Ipe is expensive. And it's high labor because it's a pain in the rear to install. So I think that there's an argument to be made that there is an economic hardship by having to use Ipe versus the metal, and achieving that low cost, low maintenance approach that's consistent with the rest of the design. Those are my 2 cents. I'll just toss them out for people's consideration.
I think the other anomaly that we see here in downtown that we don't necessarily see in some of the other districts is that in downtown, the fence material is regulation as opposed to in some other districts, there are guidelines. And that gives the committees and the commissions the latitude to make these kinds of choices, whereas here we're talking about a regulation that dictates a certain set of materials, and anything other than that requires a variance. So.
Right, fair enough. Fair enough, and I'll leave it at that. Fair enough. Does anyone have any additional thoughts?
Well, I just have one. To me, having a dumpster made out of a screen made out of one material and having it slamming into a fence made out of something else is complicated and usually not very attractive. They don't have to be together, but they could. In a lot of cases, they would be together. And I think having owned several wooden fences in my short life, the wood fences are not all they're cracked up to be. They look bad most of the time they're up. They look good when they're put up, and they're good for about 5 years, and then you have to either put them up again or you start nailing them back together. And so I'm not a fan of wood fences. I am a fan of architectural metal fences. But I'm definitely not a fan of crazy quilt of ordinances versus design standards versus variances, all those things. And I think if we want to proceed with an approval, then I think that we need to have some sense, hopefully it would be more of a formal sense, that we're going to do some housekeeping with the ordinances and the design standards in the Cottage District if we're going to do this. That's my feeling.
Hopefully that'll happen.
Well, the fencing regulation needs to be updated ultimately anyways. One thing it requires is wrought iron, which wrought iron hasn't been made since the 20s.
Are we ready for a motion? I'll move approval of the project and do a separate motion on the Board of Adjustment.
Do you want to?
You'll need to condition it.
Sorry. I'll do a motion of approval for the project with the conditions that the applicant shall obtain approval of a variance from the regulation for the building height, and that the applicant use a fence material that, and if the applicants obtain approval of a variance.
Height and material.
Yeah, for the fence material.
Second.
That sounds scripted.
Which the commission supports.
Could
You want me to rephrase that?
yeah, could you, I want to make sure that also that it's clear, but also that we hit all three variance topics. Right,
No,
there's
we only hit
there's
Material of the fence.
there's the 24 inches above, I thought there were three.
Oh, that's right.
24 inches above
That
grade.
doesn't require a variance, though.
Okay.
The
Okay,
24-inch height does
okay.
not, it's a guideline.
Okay.
Now, what about the dumpster wall, or the trash can wall? I mean,
You
do we
wanna
give
raise
them a
the-
variance? I mean, can they, want to make that to cover the trash can? Or is that going to?
I believe once grading gets completed.
You can have that.
Once final grade is in place, it'll actually be a little bit taller than 3'6" above final grade.
Yeah, and you don't want the sill to not line up with the top of, even though I like your,
You'd have to make the whole thing higher, or excavate down.
Yeah.
So, but just back to the motion, just address those three issues, and Michael corrected me, where two are variances and one is just, I guess we don't even have to take issue
don't
on
have
that,
to
do
do
we?
that.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
okay, so I'm ready for this one now. I've had a practice session, now I'm going to go for it. I move approval of the application on the basis that the project meets the development regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C. Is this all right, Michael? Okay. Section C of the staff report, subject to the conditions that the applicant shall obtain approval of a variance from the regulation for minimum building height and fence material.
I'll second that.
Is fence height?
No,
is or
fence
is
height is
not?
fine,
Okay.
but
Fence material, and if the fence material is not granted, we approve wood?
Can we do that?
Is that how you want to do it?
Can we do that in
that's
a-
what I was going to add. If the BOA chooses not to take your recommendation for approval of the fence material, do you also approve the wood alternative?
As
Is
laid
this the
out?
as
best
part of this
place-
action.
Is this the best place to do that? Do I have to repeat this whole thing again? No. Okay. And to approve the fence material to be EPA if the metal is not approved by Board of Adjustment. And I think John was my second.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's motion
With
by
the amendment.
Brunstetter, second by Robeson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that carries now to the variance recommendation.
I would like to do I need to do those separately? Two different variance recommendations, or can I do one? Okay. Provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance from the side yard and rear yard fence standards and the variance for the regulation for minimum building height.
Okay, that's a motion by Brunstetter,
I'll second it.
second by Robeson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and may I take a quick liberty now that you've voted to say that I really appreciate Mike and Lisa putting up with us because they have walked us through this myriad of ordinances we had to deal with and have been incredibly helpful. So I just wanted to publicly thank them to the commission.
Thanks, Bill. Duly noted. Thank you. Thanks. Anyone who is here about this particular case, we're going to move on, so you should feel free to go. You're not going to hurt our feelings.
But you can stay as well, right?
All right, other business, 7A, ordinance amendment.
Yes, this is the demolition ordinance that we've been chasing after for many months. This is essentially the same as it was at the public meeting in September that I know many of you were there. Also, in addition to that meeting, Betsy, George, I don't remember, I think Brian might have been in on it too. We had convened like a tiny sub-advisory committee of various members of all the boards to advise us on this as we went through. The big picture of it is, for UDC, is, and for most of the other districts, is there just aren't hardly any guidelines about building demolition and what applicants and staff and the committee can consider when evaluating the demolition. And this ordinance proposes to set some specific criteria, like structural integrity. You'd think that would be obvious, but it's not actually in the ordinance. Structural integrity, design form and urban character, like how does the existing building help or hurt the character of the district, economic feasibility, and how do we prove it? This ordinance would set up a referral to the Economic Review Board, which is very similar to something that the HP process has, that a separate committee appointed by the city manager and the mayor of industry professionals would weigh in on the economic feasibility aspects. It talks about significance, and this was really critical. I'm sorry Bill didn't stay. We did have a email conversation about it. Significance, the Cottage District folks asked that we make sure that old wasn't in and of itself significant. So we added a little bit stronger language about significant historic occurrences or significant architectural detail. Structural integrity, economic feasibility, and we also added a provision that's always kind of been in here, I think, about that the committees can evaluate what's going to replace the existing structure. All of those are set up to be weighed, that the applicant could argue against any one of the points, not 2 of the 5 or either or, but any or all. It still, even with the Economic Review Board, the individual committees and commissions still retain the power to approve or disapprove. The Economic Review Board recommendation is a recommendation. It's not a decision above what the commission would say. So we are finally at the stage where we have it all codified in a nice little document. We're coming around to all of the committees and commissions asking that they recommend approval so we can take it to Planning Commission. Another big point is a lot of people maybe would like to see stronger language and stronger points, but we're asking everybody since the beginning of this process to really believe in the kind of baby steps and that something's better than nothing. And we had originally hoped this would be in place before the 499 Sheridan project, but for lots of reasons that did not happen. But we think it would have helped frame the debate better than it ultimately was.
I agree. So I know we probably want to discuss it, but I'd like to get this moved ahead as quickly as possible because we've been chewing on it for how many years?
I've kind of been through it a bit, so I don't really have a ton of questions, but if people who have read this for the first time or being introduced to it now, please feel free to ask Lisa your questions, any things that you might be wondering about.
Never been through it. It's not perfect, but it's
Better than nothing, which is what we've got.
John, did you have any questions about it? Lon, any questions? Okay. Maybe a motion?
I move that, what's the frame we want to do it in?
It's to recommend approval to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
You're going to say recommend approval.
I would like to recommend approval to the Planning Commission.
Okay, that's motion by Brunstetter.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Fitzsimmons.
I was waiting quietly.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Fitzsimmons.
Didn't want to look like we had a
Those
meeting
guys
before
down
the
there.
meeting, you know.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion carries, thanks. Yeah, I saw your light come on, I was waiting for you. Okay, all right, well, my favorite time of the year, election of officers. Now, I know that Jeff Struble has been noodling this long and hard. Okay, do we have any motions for chair or anybody who would like to be considered to be chair?
Did you guys state that you don't want to do this again?
Well, I did not state I don't want to do it, but I did state I would heartily encourage new blood in this chair.
You would?
I would, yes, encourage that. At least give me a cursory contemplation of my suggestion, rather than immediately following up with.
Can we mix it up and like switch seats?
Yeah, you can nominate me, but I would, I don't know what everyone's plans are, but I think that, I'll just toss it to Jeff or Brian,
And we touched on this a little bit at the commissioner training for chairs. And one nuance of chairs is they can't motion. And so, if people, one could argue that if someone doesn't like to motion, they might.
be a great
I mean, I'm
chair.
serious. And part of this, the chair is just supposed to, be present in terms of watching and moving the action. And so, George has been an awesome chair because he clearly reads his packet and thoughtfully considers what's in it. So, really appreciate that. But it will change, the dynamic of how everything works in not a negative way.
It seems like you just got here.
Yeah, to you. John?
And I would love to put myself up if anybody would want to be second chair so they could ease into.
You're going the wrong direction, my friend.
Could I nominate George to be president of the world?
Okay, we have a nomination for me to be chair. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Brunstetter, Robison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That motion carries.
It's like violin.
Vice chair.
Completely failed in your duty to recruit successors.
We have.
I'll nominate Robison to be second chair.
Oh, yeah.
Did you say no?
I'll second that.
I really can't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a lot of pressure. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to be able to make a commitment like that right now.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
I nominate Jeff Struble.
Wait. Let's nominate Brian. Try to get Brian one. Jeff is not going to be chair, so we got to figure someone else who might be able
Never
to.
here. It's not going to help.
Oh, we
Pointing out you can nominate absent members.
We should have
Then maybe they
nominated
won't be
Matt for
absent.
chair. Should we nominate Matt for vice chair?
If he's going to show up.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Let's nominate Brian. Because Jeff, clearly, I've been putting the full court press on Jeff, and he is being very good about resisting. But Brian hasn't sat over here yet. Let's nominate Brian.
Okay, I would like to nominate Brian Fitzsimmons.
Second.
Second chair.
Okay. Pardon me? Okay, good. All in favor of that? That's Brunstetter Robinson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Excellent. And let's commend Jeff for an outstanding job as vice chair.
we should do a little... Oh, and George, yes.
Yes, and George.
You have not been in that seat for very long. How long has it been?
It's been years. Yeah.
Well, how long was
Oh,
Betsy?
it can't have been years.
It's been a couple of years. This is probably your third.
This is at least your third.
Yeah.
This is your third year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Speaking of,
that's
what is
nothing.
the
That's nothing. How long are you?
It's nothing in urban design.
I wasn't, I mean,
He's
I
been
was in
chair
it
since
for
I've been here, and that's
5
August
years or
2012,
something.
so.
what is?
2 years.
Isn't there a
George-
timeout on all the
Because,
boards?
what's his name? Oh, Harry
Yeah.
was it for like 30 years.
He was, yeah, he was chair for a long time. Moving along, 8A, administrative approval. Michael, you don't feel that you have to comment on these, but if there are any you want to call out, feel free.
Actually, there's, two of the cases are for the rise. One's for a new set of stairs that was required by building code that didn't get picked up in the first go-around for a balcony on the back of the building. And then the last one, number 4, is also for some new signs that are being proposed for the tenants. And just to let you know, they're doing a kind of a coordinated sign program, so you have the same look to all the signage on the building, but so it's not going to be a mishmash that you see in a lot of other buildings.
Good.
And there's a vestibule, a new vestibule enclosure for the entry, and a sign for an Oriental restaurant up on, Asian restaurant up on 23rd, and a sign for insurance agency on Classen.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. B, comments from planning department staff?
Has everyone met Justin Brosel? He might be a new face. I can't remember if he's been here before with Paula or not. Paula is not feeling well, so he got recruited
Oh, okay.
to
Okay,
step
well,
in.
thank you. Nice to see you.
He's primarily Aubrey's administrative coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the best. I've been told.
Okay, any other comments? How is the workload going? Is Michael still like working 3 jobs?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I was trying to think about, because the next item is the next meeting date, and I think we don't have any cases. I'm not sure. Today's the deadline for submittal, and if I
Yeah.
get back to the office,
Yeah, one person came in right as we were leaving, but we agreed it was administratively approvable.
Okay.
And that was the only
so
one but
the
that.
meeting in February may be canceled. We're not sure yet, but it looks, yeah.
That would be awesome.
I did a presentation at lunch today for an internal presentation, so I was looking up at how we track all the applications, and the UDC thus far in the year has had the same, in 6 months, has had almost the same number as all of last year in terms of cases. So, and I attribute that's Uptown 23. You know, that was Pizzeria Gusto and all the this tenant signage. But just about everybody has gotten a new sign between Robinson and Villa. So it's a lot. Michael's working hard because we still are short-staffed.
Okay. Speaking of staff, are we any closer to, I guess I'll move on to item C, comments/questions from commission members. Are we any closer? Do we have any visibility into how our backfilling is going for your spot and David Yost?
No.
Okay.
No, we have the past, we just got some new Bricktown commissioners, we just got some new Stockyards commissioners, so I expect UDC and DD, and we got a new downtown commissioner, so I got to think UDC is right behind them.
Okay.
We're
you-
just missing one, right?
Missing me, yeah.
I thought we were missing 2. I thought we were missing David Yost.
Who did Matt take the place of?
I think he
No,
took
Matt
the
was on when I was.
He took
We're
the...
missing 2.
Yeah.
Oh, so we have 8 normally?
Because we have to replace
That's an odd-
David, we have to replace David
Okay.
and Lisa.
Oh, right, David, I keep forgetting about David. Yeah.
I think Matt came on when they rejiggered and the traffic commission was no longer represented on the UDC. I think that's when Matt came on. Any other questions or comments from commission members? No? Okay. So the next meeting date, should there be one, Wednesday, February 25th, and given that there's no additional action before the commission, we are adjourned.
Do you like doing that?
Rita told me I could do that.